Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at English weather vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
And this is going to be great for you if you're, brushing up on your English skills, or if you're planning a trip to an English-speaking country, or even if you're just curious about, how English speakers talk about the weather, which we do a lot.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be using this video from Learning English podcast, which is specifically for upper intermediate English learners.
Okay.
And talk about the weather. It's small talk 101 in so many English-speaking cultures.
Yeah, it really is. And what's fascinating is that English really relies on weather metaphors,
Oh, yeah.
And so today we're going to focus on the literal terms.
Okay.
But as we go along, I want you to keep an ear out for, how those same words pop up in everyday language to describe, feelings and situations and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's jump right into a real-life example here.
Okay.
The forecast for Utah mentions scattered showers, a chilly 45 degrees, a cold front moving in, and even the possibility of sleet.
Oh, no.
So it sounds like Utah's in for some pretty dreary weather.
Yeah, it does paint a rather gloomy picture, doesn't it? And that 45 degrees, that chilly 45 degrees, that's in Fahrenheit.
Right.
Which translates to about 7 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
For our metric listeners out there.
Yeah.
So definitely bundle up weather.
Speaking of bundling up, what exactly does scattered showers mean?
Okay.
Is it like a light drizzle or something a bit heavier?
Scattered showers is a great example of how English speakers like to be really precise.
Okay.
Even when we're talking about something that is unpredictable, like the weather.
Right.
Basically, it means that you're going to have rain in some areas, but not everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So picture it like this. Imagine kids scattered around a playground.
Okay.
Some are on the swings, some are in the sandbox. You have activity happening, but not in one concentrated area.
So it's like little pockets of rain popping up here and there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Then there's this phrase, temperatures hovering around 30 degrees.
Okay.
Now, I always get a bit confused by that word hovering.
Sure. So think of a hummingbird.
Okay.
Rapidly fluttering its wings to stay in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what hovering implies.
I see.
The temperature stays close to 30 degrees,
Okay.
maybe fluctuating a degree or two up or down,
Okay.
but remaining pretty stable.
So no dramatic temperature drops, just a gentle sway around that 30-degree mark.
Got it. Yeah.
But then they mentioned isolated downpours. Those sound much more dramatic.
Okay.
What exactly is a downpour and what makes it isolated?
Okay, so a downpour is basically like a sudden heavy burst of rain,
Okay.
usually over a short period.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine somebody just dumping a bucket of water really quickly.
Oh.
That's the kind of intensity that we're talking about.
Gotcha.
And then isolated simply means it's confined to a specific area.
Okay.
So isolated downpours would mean that, a few select spots get drenched, while other areas stay completely dry.
It's amazing how English combines words to create such specific meanings. You really have to pay attention to each word.
You do.
To paint the full picture in your mind.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of strong weather, they also mentioned gusts reaching 23 miles per hour.
Okay.
What exactly is a gust?
Okay, so imagine you're walking on a windy day, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly you get hit with a particularly strong burst of wind that almost knocks you off your feet.
Mm-hmm.
That's a gust.
Okay.
It's like this sudden, brief surge of power within a generally windy condition.
Okay.
Think of a flag, suddenly snapping in the wind.
Wow.
That's the visual I get when I hear the word gusts.
Okay, so it's not a constant 23 mile per hour wind, but rather short, powerful bursts. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I have to admit, the part of the forecast that really makes me cringe is the mention of sleet. There's just something about sleet.
I hear sleet is definitely not a crowd pleaser.
No.
It's that miserable mix of snow and rain, those tiny ice pellets that just seem to sting when they hit your face. Not quite snow, not quite rain, just cold and unpleasant.
Yes.
The word itself almost sounds unpleasant.
Totally. It's like the weather can't make up its mind, so it just throws this icy mess at us.
Right.
And then on top of the sleet, we have a cold front moving in.
Oh, boy.
Doesn't it sound almost like an invading army is about to descend upon Utah?
That's actually a great way to visualize it.
Really?
A cold front is basically a mass of cold air that muscles its way into an area,
Okay.
pushing out the warmer air.
Uh-huh.
So imagine this wall of cold air just sweeping in,
Yeah.
causing a sudden drop in temperature,
Right.
and often bringing along some dramatic weather changes, rain, snow, or in this case, sleet.
So when they say winds coming in from the northeast, it's not just about the wind direction,
Right.
but also about where that wind originates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The phrase coming in from tells us about the wind's source.
Okay.
In this case, the wind is blowing from the northeast toward Utah. And you can use coming in from for all sorts of things, not just the wind.
Right.
For example, you might say, my friends are coming in from another city for the weekend.
That's a useful phrase to know. I can
Oh.
definitely see myself using that one. Oh, and there's one more phrase I'd love to unpack.
Okay.
The forecast says it's going to be a cold one.
Mm-hmm.
What's with the one at the end?
Right.
It seems so casual, almost slangy.
And you're right. It is a colloquialism.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
this case, one is simply replacing the noun day.
Oh.
So it's going to be a cold one just means it's going to be a cold day.
So one is like shorthand for whatever we're talking about? That's kind of clever.
Precisely. And the beauty of this phrase is its flexibility.
Oh.
You can use it with all sorts of adjectives and nouns.
So I could say it's going to be a long one to describe a busy day,
Exactly.
or it's going to be a tough one for a difficult meeting.
Exactly. It's a super handy phrase to have in your conversational toolkit.
I like it.
It adds a touch of informality,
Yeah.
and it makes you sound like a native speaker.
Okay. I'm starting to understand why English speakers love to talk about the weather.
Uh-huh.
These phrases are so descriptive and fun to use.
They are.
It's almost like you're painting a picture with words.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that these seemingly simple weather terms
Yeah.
can actually reveal a lot about English culture and communication styles.
Ooh. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay. You've touched on something really important there.
Oh, yeah.
Weather talk in English isn't just about conveying information. It's about, creating connections.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a universal language that everyone understands.
Yeah.
I remember being in London once,
Okay.
and the weather was just miserable.
Uh,
Gray skies, drizzling rain, the whole bit. But I started chatting with a local about the weather, and it instantly broke the ice.
Yeah.
We ended up having a great conversation.
It's amazing how something as simple as commenting on the weather can really open doors to, deeper conversations. And remember that phrase that we talked about earlier? It sure is a cold one today, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a classic conversation starter in English-speaking countries.
Yeah.
It's almost like an invitation to share a common experience.
Right. It's like saying, hey, we're both in this together.
Exactly.
Let's chat about it.
Yeah.
It's such a simple yet effective way to connect.
Exactly. And once the ice is broken, you can move on to sharing personal stories about, crazy weather experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever been caught in a sudden downpour without an umbrella?
Oh, yeah.
Or witnessed a blizzard that shut down the entire city?
Yeah. Or a tornado.
Oh, yeah.
I've been through a couple of those.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Those kinds of shared experiences, really bring people together.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a story, actually. A
Okay.
few years ago, I was visiting family in the Midwest during a summer thunderstorm,
Okay.
and the power went out. The wind was howling like a banshee,
Yeah.
and the rain was coming down sideways.
Oh, my God.
It was a bit terrifying, to be honest,
yeah.
but also kind of exhilarating at the same time.
You see, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Those kinds of shared experiences make weather talk so much more engaging.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just, stating the temperature or the wind speed.
Right.
It becomes about connecting with others through, shared emotions and memories.
Totally. It's like the weather creates this common ground,
Yeah.
a way to bridge, cultural differences and find common ground.
Precisely. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of weather vocabulary,
Right.
the way it permeates everyday language.
Oh, you mean like how we use weather metaphors to describe feelings or situations?
Exactly.
Like when someone says they're feeling under the weather.
Exactly. It's not a literal statement about their physical location,
Right.
but rather a colorful way of saying that they're not feeling well.
Hmm.
And those metaphors are everywhere once you start noticing them.
Yeah.
You might hear someone describe, a difficult situation as a storm they need to weather, or a positive change as a breath of fresh air,
It's like we're borrowing from the language of weather to add depth and imagery to our everyday conversation.
Exactly. And for English language learners, paying attention to these metaphors is key to unlocking a deeper understanding of English culture and communication.
It's like learning a secret code that opens up this whole new world of meaning.
That's a great way to put it. And the best part is this code is constantly being used.
Right.
You can't escape weather talk in English-speaking countries.
You really can't.
It's woven into the fabric of our daily lives.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
I never realized how much depth and richness there is to English weather vocabulary.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
I know.
There's so much more to explore, from, regional dialects to historical idioms. For example, have you ever heard the expression, "it's raining cats and dogs"?
Of course. Everyone knows that one.
Right.
But I have to admit, I've never really thought about where it came from.
Well, that's a perfect example of a historical idiom. It's believed to originate from a time when houses had thatched roofs.
Oh, wow.
And heavy rain would sometimes wash stray animals down the streets.
Oh, that makes sense.
So these days, we use it to describe a very heavy downpour.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I love how these idioms give us a glimpse into, the history of the language,
Yeah.
and the culture.
Yeah.
It's like each phrase has a story to tell.
Exactly. And that's what makes language learning so enriching.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about memorizing words.
Right.
It's about understanding the stories behind those words, the cultural nuances, the humor, the history.
I'm starting to think that learning about weather is almost like learning about life itself.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
Well, just think about it.
Yeah.
Weather, like life, is full of unexpected turns.
Okay.
You can have these moments of sunshine and bleak skies,
Yeah.
followed by sudden storms and dark clouds.
Right.
It's unpredictable, constantly changing, and sometimes challenging.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And just like, we need to be prepared for whatever the weather throws at us.
Yeah.
We need to be adaptable and resilient in life as well.
Exactly. We need to learn how to weather the storms,
Yeah.
embrace the sunshine, and appreciate all the nuances in between.
Beautifully said. So, dear listener, what does this all mean for you? How can you apply what we've learned today to your own life and your own language journey?
It's a good question. I think the key takeaway here is that weather talk isn't just small talk.
Right.
It's this powerful tool for connection, communication, and cultural understanding.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so the next time you hear someone talking about the weather, don't just tune it out.
Right.
Really listen to the words that they're using.
Yeah.
What kind of imagery are they invoking? What emotions are they trying to convey?
Yeah, you might be surprised at how much you can learn about a person and their culture just by listening to them talk about the weather.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's like a little window into their world.
Mhm.
And don't be afraid to jump into those conversations yourself.
Yeah.
Use the phrases we've discussed today. Experiment with those weather metaphors.
Yeah.
And share your own weather experiences.
Yes, right.
Like that time you got caught in that crazy thunderstorm in the Midwest.
Exactly. Who knows? You might discover, a shared passion for storm chasing, or, a mutual hatred of sleet.
Yeah.
But it goes even deeper than that.
Okay.
This raises an important question.
What's that?
How does the way we talk about the weather reflect our own values and experiences?
Well, that's a good one to ponder.
Yeah.
Like maybe we see sunshine as this metaphor for opportunity.
Right.
Or, a rainy day.
Yeah.
As a chance for quiet reflection. It's fascinating to think about how our personal experiences really shape the way we use language.
And think about, all those sayings that we have related to weather.
Yeah.
Every cloud has a silver lining, or it's raining cats and dogs.
Yeah, those sayings really give us a glimpse into the cultural history of English.
Yeah, they do.
They tell stories about how people have viewed and interacted with the natural world for centuries. It's like each phrase carries this little piece of the past with it.
It's a reminder that language isn't just about words.
Right.
It's about connections.
Yeah.
Connections to people, to places, and to the world around us.
Well said.
Yeah.
So as you venture out into the world, keep your ears open for those weather conversations.
Yeah.
You never know what insights you might glean.
Right.
What connections you might forge, or what stories you might uncover.
Exactly.
It's amazing how something as simple as talking about the weather can open up this whole new world of understanding.
And remember,
Yeah.
whether it's a sunny day or a stormy one, there's always something to learn and something to share.
That's a wrap on this deep dive into English weather vocabulary.
Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey and learned something new along the way.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those conversations flowing.